Topical, in the name of Deputy Declan Branagh, who's 4 minutes.
Unfortunately, I'd like to say at the outset that I'm disappointed that Minister Bruton is not taking this particular question, because I understand under the rules of the House that if the Minister is not available to deputies on a particular day, that this could have been deferred, and I was not informed of that. I just want to put that on the record before I say my few words. But be that as it may, I will pose the issue. Minister, the problems associated with Scoil Náisiúnta Bhríde in Faughart in County Louth have been ongoing for quite some time. My office has been dealing with representations from many of the families, and indeed children of the families, that are impacted in relation to the saga that has been going on in this school since May 2017. Neither you, Minister, or your office, nor the Archbishop of Armagh, Eamon Martin, the patron of the school, up until it closed its doors in mid-September 2017, could find a solution to what was an ongoing problem within the school relating to leadership and management. And the consequent fallout were a drop in enrolments due to the falling standards at that school. Dozens of families in the communities were left with no option but to withdraw their children from the school because of the failure, or indeed the inability, of the department to deal with the issues of the time. The school has remained closed ever since. This school operated with 3 teachers, a secretary and a caretaker, and before it was closed there were 23 boys and 32 girls attending, down from a high in its heyday of over 100 pupils. The Church closed the school in order to find a solution to the problem. But at the time, it was said clearly, verbally, both to me and to others, that they would allow it to be divested in another patronage once the problem was resolved in relation to the poor management at the school. The Reverend Archbishop Martin has been contacted by myself, I have to say, without a response. Others he did respond to, representatives of the parents' group. A recent reply from him has stated that he has no objection in principle to the possibility that the department, following due process, would make a decision regarding the opening of a new school under a different patronage on the former Scoil Bhríde site. However, in his letter he has stated that he has asked the department for documentation regarding the process, and he stated that he has not received the documentation that he requested. He also said in correspondence that he was not aware that there was any demand for a change of patronage or for diversity of patronage provision while the school was open. He also believes it's reasonable that any decision for a change in patronage would be made following a plebiscite of other form of wider consultation within the local community. Minister, the Archbishop cannot but have been aware of the requests for a change of patronage since the school closed. The Archbishop has also stated that as a trustee of the trust which owns the property, and as Archbishop of Armagh, he has a responsibility to the parish of Faughart to ensure that the religious education of the children of the parish, including their sacramental preparation, is safeguarded. Minister, I have confirmation from the LMETB that all preparation for sacraments would be carried out in conjunction with the local parish. Archbishop Martin has asked for clarification from the department as to whether such a change over of patronage is essentially the opening of a new school rather than a transfer of patronage to an existing school. He said he would expect the same criteria of assessment should apply as would normally apply in the case of any proposed new school. I'm sorry, I hope you'll beg my indulgence just for the last paragraph, Count Corder, because of what I said earlier at the opening. I completely understand the concerns of the Archbishop in this regard, and also in regards to religious education. But surely a mechanism can be found to satisfy his concerns and to enable the school to reopen to the satisfaction of the parents and the community as speedily as possible.
Minister, 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Deputy for raising this matter, and it gives me the opportunity on behalf of Minister Richard Bruton to set out for the Dáil the position with regard to voluntary reassignment of patronage under Section 8 of the Education Act. As the Deputy will be aware, Minister Bruton has announced new plans aimed at accelerating the provision of multi-denominational and non-denominational schools across the country, in line with the choices of parents, families and school communities, and the programme for government commitment to reach 400 such schools by 2030. I would point out that the previous model of patronage divestment yielded only a very limited number of schools for transfer to multi-denominational patrons, and that was 10 since 2013. I believe that the new schools reconfiguration for diversity process has the potential to significantly increase patron diversity in our school system. The early movers provision of the schools reconfiguration for diversity process involves voluntary reassignments of patronage under Section 8 of the Education Act 1989. This fast track is part of the plan to accelerate the delivery of multi-denominational and non-denominational schools. The new process supporting transfers of schools to multi-denominational patrons in response to the wishes of local families is based around principles of transparency and cooperation. This process involves consultation with the school community and the local community, and the current patron reflects their wishes in a request to transfer patronage under Section 8 of the Education Act. In relation to the school to which the Deputy refers, the Department will consider any request that may be made by the existing patron for a transfer of patronage to a multi-denominational patron under this early movers provision. Already, the first reconfiguration has successfully taken place, with 2 Mile Community National School opening in September 2017 under the early movers provision of this new process. In such cases as Faughart, individual early movers are being facilitated with immediate transfers to multi- or denominational patrons, where the community and the current patron have opted voluntarily to do so. If there is agreement on the transfer of patronage, the procedure is that the Archdiocese would write to the Department with a request under Section 8.3 of the Education Act for the Minister to amend the patron register in respect of this school on application of the existing patron as the person who stands for the time being registered as the patron of the school. I understand that there has been some interaction locally with multi-denominational patrons, including a meeting between representatives of the former Scoil Náisiúnta Bríde Parents Association and the Loudmead ETB in this regard. The Department has been contacted by some of the parties, but indicated that this was a matter for the patron rather than my department at this stage. Will I continue?
Have you another? You have to use the second.
The Department has also responded to correspondence from the existing patron seeking clarification in relation to the early movers provision of the school's reconfiguration for diversity process. My department has indicated that it would review any request to transfer patronage in this case positively.
Deputy Brown has 2 minutes.
We're talking about a transfer of patronage, I believe, that can be fast-tracked. You have an LMETB, as you said yourself, that is quite capable and one of the best probably in the country at education and school management. And they have said that this school can be opened for September 2018. Minister, you know, and I know in my previous life as a principal teacher in a rural school, that the rural school is the hub of most communities. And it is sad and disappointing, notwithstanding the valiant effort of the parents and families and the community of Faughart, that this school remains closed. And my concern here is that there is certain obfuscation and certain fudge. The patron has written to the department outlining questions he wants answered. You mentioned an early movers provision. If the early movers provision is not made within a certain period of time in any rural community, people find other places and have done so. He has written letters saying about what would the effects be on the other schools. The reality is it will only reverse the difficulty that that particular school had. Minister, I know you have sent out a first round of surveys under the consultation plan for the divestment of schools, and you are also seeking to outlaw baptism barrier for entry to those Catholic schools. However, as things stand today, the Catholic bishops have the final say in which schools they transfer and what type of school will emerge. It is my clear understanding, Minister, having taken advice, that the Education Act makes provision for the existing patron to transfer patronage to another patron. I have been advised that Archbishop Martin has withdrawn as patron of Faughart. That's a very important point. It is the parents' wish to reopen the school in September under the patronage of the LMETB. And the LMETB has confirmed to me that they are willing to open the school this September under the patronage of the LMETB. And in fact, 30 families have already filled in expressions of interest form to send their children both back and new to Faughart School under that patronage. I would implore you, Minister, in your capacity, to meet with Archbishop Martin to obtain the necessary letter of request from him to enable this transfer of patronage to take place.
Thank you, Deputy.
Finally, any further delay will weaken that spirit of community that you and I, as a former teacher, Minister, know the importance of these schools, the importance of rural schools to the community, the hub.
Thank you, Deputy.
If you leave it beyond September,
Minister,
you're running a risk that the school will never reopen. Another Drimma League.
Thank you very much. As I said in my answer, the Department has been contacted by some of the parties, but they have indicated that this was a matter for the patron. I take your point that you're asking the Minister to meet with Archbishop Martin and get that request. What I do want to say to you, though, and as I've said to you already, the Department has indicated that it would review any request to transfer patronage in this case positively. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.